But this group, the Rodell Institute, its CEO is decidedly anti-Trump. So is many of its donors, like the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and also many of its faculty, like Kara Drinan, who taught a conference or taught a seminar at the conference on what role judges play in democracy. Now, that sounds familiar. Democracy, that was the 2024 Democratic National Committee's theme for the election. They want to save democracy. Remember from Donald Trump? Well, this judicial conference had an eerily similar overtone to it. Clear anti-Trump funders, clear anti-Trump group, and clear anti-Trump teachers at the group. A lot of people today reacting to it say, hey, it may be time now to end these junkets that these judges have been taking at special interest behest, because these are the sort of things you don't want. Automatically, people will start to question Judge Boasberg's unbiased or his personal biases because of the attendance here. So and John, members of Congress are among them.
Yeah, and John, to your point, Boasberg also, didn't his wife donate also to Biden? The daughter also works with a Keep Folks from Being Deported group.
Yeah, listen, the family is clearly Democratic. By the way, they have their First Amendment right to speech. But a judge has a high standard. That standard is to take no action that might call into question your impartiality, and to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. Today, I talked to Alan Dershowitz, I talked to Congressman Andy Biggs, and several other members of Congress, all of them saying Judge Boasberg going to this conference where there was a clear anti-Trump, anti-immigration crackdown theme and speakers, probably should have recused himself or not gone to the conference. Be better for the American public is what they said. So, yeah, Judge Boasberg has a lot of issues lingering around him right now about political bias.
Judge Weinberg.
John, good to talk to you again. I think it's absolutely essential that Boasberg should have recused himself, given his family's relationship, being at this conference. There's no way he has anything but the appearance of impropriety and bias. And to protect his own reputation, he should have done that. But to do the right thing for the American people on a most important issue facing us, the national security, the public safety of this country, he definitely should have recused himself.
No, Boasberg obviously did the wrong thing, John.
Served on the bench.
Boasberg did the wrong thing. But also, we had Judge Merchan here in New York during the Trump trial last year, where his entire family was involved. It's terrible.
Yeah, the daughter was making so much money. Remember that?
And the salary was, as the case got worse, she would get more money. So
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great point that Peter King's making, John. That it's like this is like a pattern here.
Well, listen, one of the things we learned from the Russia collusion unraveling, all the reporting I did with Sarah Carter and others, was that the Democrats and liberals have set up an ecosystem. And their ecosystem, when it came to the FBI and the Justice Department officials who were involved in that case, they were going on junkets, and that made them predisposed to be friends with these liberal activists. This same pattern, this same ecosystem has been extended to the court system now. Maybe 30 years ago, the junkets were true training grounds and they were nonpartisan. But today, the liberals are trying to use all of these interactions with people in power to try to sway them to their side, to influence them, to woo them. And I think that's why in the next few days, you're going to see members of Congress introduce legislation to ban judges in the future from going on these junkets, on these special interest trips.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Judge.
2 points, John. One, you have to start looking at national injunctions and how to limit them. Because one judge out of 700 U.S. District Court judges should be able to lock in a policy for the whole country. That's number one. Number two, Boasberg himself was the judge in the sentencing where he had that kid, the lawyer, put in a fraudulent affidavit to the FISA court. Yeah, and it gave the kid probation when the Justice Department was recommending jail time.
Yeah.
If anybody deserved jail time, because they committed a fraud on the federal FISA court.
Yeah, it's like the fix is in. I mean, and it's like they're judge shopping, too. That's the other thing, too. I mean, it's interesting to see how it lands in his plate.
These junkets allow those special interests to figure out who are the most amenable judges, who are closer to us, so that they can start to judge shop when the actual venue decisions come up. That's a big reason why I think people are there. Now, on what the judge just said, I expect 2 pieces of legislation to be introduced this week. One would create a super court, like the FISA court, and any local district judge would have to appeal to that court and get permission from that court to do an injunction. Or there's a second piece of legislation coming from Andy Biggs, a member of the House Judiciary committee. He's actually chairman of one of the House Judiciary subcommittees. He's going to put an outright ban saying no judge can extend a moratorium or an injunction on anything outside of his district. So Congress jumping in to address these two issues right now.
All right. Well, keep us posted, John Solomon. You always have great stuff, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And
great to be with you guys.
Thank you, John. And everybody, John was just talking about legislation going through Congress. Our next guest is Congressman Darrell Issa from the great state of California. And in addition to that, Pete, he is pushing legislation to stop these rogue federal judges, which is just what we're talking about. Congressman Darrell Issa, this is Rita Cosby, Judge Weinberg, and Congressman Peter King's also with us. Go ahead, Pete.
That was always great to talk with you. And again, you always did a great job. You're doing an even better job this time. Tell us about the legislation on the judges, and keep up the fight. I don't have to tell you that. To keep up the fight.
Well, thanks, Peter. And when we saw this coming in the first Trump administration, we began looking at basically original intent of the creation of district court judges, which was to relieve the Supreme Court by region on plaintiffs before them. So when we put together this legislation, which has already gone through subcommittee, and we expect to have it on the floor next week, the reason we put it together carefully was Congress has given certain circumstances in which a district judge does rule slightly greater, significantly greater than just his district. We call them class action lawsuits. And Peter, you might remember during the Biden administration, we had 16 attorneys general who were all dealing with the wrong conduct of Joe Biden as one group. So there are times in which a judge can exceed their district, but they're narrow and they have to be respected. And since the High Court isn't willing to strike down these overly broad injunctions, we're going to do it legislatively. And like I say, we'll be marking it up. It will go out onto the House floor next week, and I expect it to pass.
You know, Congressman Issa from California, I couldn't believe when I saw just the number of injunctions that have been issued against presidents in the past. Like, the numbers tell the whole story. You see, like, Obama had 12 against him. Bush had 6. Trump in his first term had 64. Biden in his 4 years had 14. And already President Trump has had 15, and he's only been there 2 months. I mean, that speaks volumes, Congressman.
Rita, you're exactly right, although I will say one thing. President Trump has done more in 60 days than Biden did in 4 years.
That's true. That's true. You're right.
But there's no question the speed with which these groups are shopping friendly judges, ones they've pre-qualified, and getting action so fast that, for example, in the case of the turnaround order on DHS on those aircraft, they didn't even know that the case was before a judge, and there was already a decision. This is one of the challenges: is they're essentially acting what lawyers call de novo. They're just acting on their own, and it has to be stopped. And since Congress creates the lower courts, Congress defines what they're allowed to do and not do, we're going to take action as is appropriate and do just that. Now, having said that, in the earlier segment, you brought up some very good points, and I think it's important to remember some of these judges have crossed lines that they should be considered for impeachment. But impeachment is different than simply finding a judge that already believes something and having them make an overly broad case. So we believe we're probably going to need both. We're undoubtedly going to have a judge that needs to be brushed back from their wrong conduct and their bias. But we can't do it with 700 judges. So there's no question my legislation and similar legislation over in Senator Grassley's side that they're working on, they expect to be putting out in the next few days.
Darrell, do you expect a united Republican Party on this?
I do. I expect it very united. The moment the word got out on what we were doing and the speakers meeting, we got 17 new co-sponsors that called us. You remember on the floor having to go around with a sheet of paper looking for co-sponsors. No, this is very much uniting. There are, as you can imagine, Peter, there are people who want to do more and they want to do it quickly and they want revenge against the judges. But the best revenge for misconduct is in fact to prevent it from happening in the future, not just for one, but for 700.
One step at a time. You're right. I agree totally.
Yeah, and especially when you have 700 judges, it's like, wow. Judge Weinberg.
Congressman, good to talk to you again. I'll tell you what concerned me. He readily and quickly gave class action certification to these people who are being deported without going through the process of a class action certification here. And with papers...
Yeah, there's no question at all. This did not fit the requirements for class action. And, you can't just say, well, there's more than one person, so we're going to make it a class. And we are going to be very careful on that. One of the situations, though, and I've got to remember, the shoe will be on the other foot in 12 or 16 years. And when it is, we don't want to have a situation where a dozen or more attorneys general can't get themselves into one court. So there will have to be times in which a judge will do it. What we're doing in our legislation, though, is we're anticipating the expedited review. And to be honest, in most cases, and you know this, Judge, in most cases, these orders could be stayed. But these judges don't want them stayed. They want them just the opposite. They want them invoked, and then they want delay in getting to an appellate decision. And that's one thing that we can't tolerate is the idea that one judge speaks for the entire nation. We have 9 justices whose job it is to do that.
And by the way, Congressman Ice, we're talking about also in this case about deporting the worst of the worst. I'm just seeing a story across also that Massachusetts releases illegal migrants accused of raping kids because the governor there and the mayor, they've kind of put their foot down about not helping ICE. I mean, it's almost the definition of insanity that they're fighting to keep the worst of the worst here.
They are, and the idea that a judge is going to look and say that, you've got to do all these things for people in a time of war in which the president has appropriately used his authority to define this group as at war with us, as a terrorist organization. They went through a whole process. These are not just some street thugs. These are people that are part of an organized organization that killing happens to be part of what it takes to be in this club. And they are from a foreign country, and they come here to commit these crimes, and they coordinate all over the world. To me, whether it's Hezbollah or it's Al-Qaeda or it's a Venezuelan gang, the fact is, once they're designated that way and they are not citizens and they are here illegally, this shouldn't even be a difficult decision to say there's a reason that law has been on the books for over 200 years, and that's because it's a good law when you're talking about people invading our country.
Well, bravo for fighting the good fight and trying to keep America safe. Congressman Darrell Issa, really great to have you here always.
Thanks, Rita. And Peter, good to hear from you again.
Well, good talking to you, Darrell.
Take care.
Thanks so much. And everybody, after the break, Gordon Chang, really scary stuff of what China is doing to influence Iran and how close are they to a nuclear weapon.
Get in the zone.